What if I told you that one of Leonardo da Vinci's most mysterious paintings hides a secret that was only discovered using modern X-ray technology? A secret that completely changes how we understand this Renaissance masterpiece. For nearly 6 centuries, art historians thought they knew everything about this painting. They were wrong. In 2012, scientists used cutting-edge X-ray and ultraviolet analysis to peer beneath the painted surface of Lady with an Ermine. What they found shocked the art world. The small white creature cradled so tenderly in the woman's arms, the very element that gives this painting its name, wasn't part of Leonardo's original vision. He added it later. But the mystery doesn't end there. The question that has puzzled experts ever since is simple yet profound. Why? Before we unravel this enigma, let's step back and appreciate what makes this painting extraordinary. Created at least a decade before the iconic Mona Lisa, Lady with an Ermine showcases Leonardo da Vinci at the height of his creative powers. Both works feature a woman positioned in three-quarter profile, a revolutionary approach that was remarkably innovative for the late 15th century. This perspective creates an intimate connection between the subject and the viewer, as if we've just walked into the room and caught her attention. Yet despite its brilliance, this painting remains overshadowed by the fame of the Mona Lisa. This is a tragedy, because Lady with an Ermine deserves equal recognition, perhaps even more. It represents a masterclass in composition, movement, and Leonardo's unparalleled genius.
The story behind this portrait is as fascinating as the painting itself. The work was commissioned by Ludovico Sforza, the Duke of Milan, and one of Leonardo's most important patrons. Yes, the same man who commissioned The Last Supper. The woman portrayed is believed to be Cecilia Gallerani, the Duke's young mistress, who was merely 16 years old when she sat for this portrait. In her arms she holds a white ermine, gently caressing it with delicate fingers. The tenderness of this gesture creates a humanizing warmth that radiates from the canvas. Her features possess a luminous quality, a living presence that must have delighted the young sitter. Historical records suggest she cherished this painting so much that she took it with her when circumstances forced her separation from Ludovico. Leonardo's greatest achievement here lies in the extraordinary naturalism he captured, a feat even more impressive considering that realistic painting techniques were still evolving during this period. Notice how Cecilia's posture conveys spontaneity and life. She's turning, caught mid-motion, as if responding to something just outside the frame. Some art historians suggest this gesture depicts the exact moment when Ludovico enters the room and she turns to acknowledge him. It's a frozen instant, yet somehow still alive with movement. The lighting in this composition reveals Leonardo's mastery. Illumination enters from the upper right corner, cascading diagonally toward the lower left, enveloping both woman and animal in a soft, balanced radiance. This gradual transition creates striking natural clarity and three-dimensional depth. Leonardo emphasizes Cecilia's rotation by allowing her face to be precisely illuminated against the dark background, a technique that makes her seem to emerge from the shadows.
Multiple details throughout the painting reveal that Cecilia was a woman of refined taste with remarkably modern sensibilities for her era. Draped elegantly over her shoulder is a garment called a soprana, a decorative shawl that opens gracefully, covering approximately a quarter of her arm's length. Her hairstyle demonstrates equal sophistication. She wears her hair gathered in what's known as a quazzone, essentially a Spanish braid that cascades over her shoulders. This is complemented by a delicate cap positioned at the nape of her neck, held in place by a lenza, a thin silk ribbon tied around her forehead. Over everything,
A transparent veil softly frames her cheeks, adding layers of delicacy and refinement. To truly appreciate Leonardo's innovation, we must understand the portrait conventions of his time. Before the 1450s, Italian artists almost exclusively painted their subjects in strict profile, a lateral perspective that allowed precise rendering of facial features, while maintaining dignified formality appropriate for high-status individuals. Portrait commissions came primarily from the elite, who valued idealized representations of their social position over absolute realism. However, around 1430, Northern European artists began experimenting with a revolutionary new approach, the three-quarter pose. This position, more natural and dynamic, allowed for greater expression of movement, character, and humanity. Eventually, this trend migrated south and transformed Italian portraiture forever. One early Italian example is Andrea del Castagno's Portrait of a Man, painted around 1450. Compare this with Leonardo's work, and the evolution becomes clear. Castagno's portrait, full of strength and character, uses the three-quarter pose to let the sitter look beyond the frame, establishing a direct connection with viewers. Details like the man's hand gripping his tunic convey pride and determination.
But Leonardo pushes far beyond this. Cecilia's posture is infinitely more complex, with subtleties that reward careful observation. Her extended hand, for instance, is painted with extraordinary precision. You can see the contours, the skin texture, even the faint crease between her index and middle fingers, details that bring the painting to life. Another revealing comparison involves Sandro Botticelli's contemporary portrait of a young man. In Botticelli's work, the sitter appears in a more frontal pose, with personality expressed through head tilt and hand gesture. Yet Botticelli's portrait lacks the sophisticated interplay of light and shadow that Leonardo employs to create volume and depth. When viewed side by side, it becomes obvious how the turned posture in Lady with an Ermine introduces entirely new energy. This movement creates contrasts that make Botticelli's work appear noticeably flatter by comparison. For an artist who created only 10 to 15 portraits during his entire career, Leonardo's impact on portraiture's evolution was nothing short of revolutionary. Now we arrive at the painting's central mystery. While art historians largely agree that the woman is Cecilia Gallerani, fierce debate surrounds the symbolism and meaning of the ermine. Why did Leonardo add this creature? What message was he trying to convey?
First, we should acknowledge that the animal depicted is far too large to be a real ermine. According to experts, its presence is primarily symbolic. Traditionally, the ermine, a white weasel during winter months, symbolized purity and virtue. Medieval belief held that these creatures preferred death over soiling their pristine fur. Leonardo himself wrote in his notebooks, "The ermine, out of moderation, never eats but once a day, and it would rather let itself be captured by hunters than take refuge in a dirty lair in order not to stain its purity." Under this interpretation, Leonardo might have intended to highlight Cecilia's chastity and nobility. However, this reading contains an inherent contradiction. Cecilia was Ludovico's mistress, not his legitimate wife. Therefore, some historians believe the purity symbol was used ironically, or perhaps to elevate her image within Milan's courtly society. Another widely accepted theory suggests the ermine directly references Ludovico Sforza himself. The Duke was nicknamed El Ermelino, Italian for the ermine, after receiving the Order of the Ermine from the King of Naples in 1488. If this interpretation is correct, the animal becomes a metaphor for the Duke, with the painting representing Cecilia literally holding her protector and lover in her arms, disguised as the ermine. This reading gives the work a more intimate and political dimension, functioning as a subtle declaration of belonging and power within Milan's complex courtly dynamics. Finally,
Some scholars argue that Leonardo chose the ermine for purely aesthetic or philosophical reasons. He was fascinated by animals and saw in the ermine an example of balance and natural elegance, qualities that aligned with his ideals of harmony between humanity and nature. In this view, the ermine carries no specific moral or political message, but instead serves Leonardo's pursuit of compositional perfection, balancing the body's movement with the direction of the gaze.
Recent X-ray studies have revealed 3 distinct creative stages. Initially, there was no animal whatsoever. In the second stage, Leonardo added a smaller gray ermine. Only in the final stage did that gray creature transform into the white muscular ermine we see today. So the true reason Leonardo decided to include this animal remains unsolved. Was it a reference to his patron? An aesthetic decision? Or perhaps a hidden message that even after nearly 6 centuries, we haven't yet deciphered? Whatever the answer, this small detail proves once again the genius of Leonardo da Vinci, his unmatched ability to transform a simple portrait into a masterpiece that still compels us to look deeper, to question, to wonder. The mystery endures, waiting for someone to finally crack the code.